So a super common maladaptive, I hate saying maladaptive, but coping mechanism that people who come from like trauma backgrounds have is the uh, mechanism of, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get all the information, I'm gonna figure everything out, then I'm gonna know how to cope with what's gonna happen, because the anxiety is harder to deal with than the fear. The uncertainty about what might happen is scarier than like once the bad shit shows up, just dealing with it. I was always, it didn't help that I come from a hurricane state. So having that background of like, okay, let's prepare for the worst, just in case. And I mean, not like wishing for it or, to the exclusion of like, but maybe it'll be awesome. But yeah, definitely having that, okay, I'm going to think of every permutation of what could possibly happen and try and be prepared for every single outcome. And is the dumb thing about that is that there are so many outcomes that I have projected that have not happened. Like I've mentally come up with something dramatic and terrible, and that has not occurred anywhere but in my brain. What a waste of my mental time. Obviously in the moment I wasn't thinking that way. In that moment I was like, okay, let me work that mental computer, because I want to feel safe. I want to be able to handle what's happening. What it is that the anxiety of not knowing what could happen is harder to deal with than the fear that occurs when you're in a bad situation. Like the not knowing, the not being able to figure it out, the not, then if you don't know what's happening and like, how do you make like the right decision? I was very much like, okay, if I make the right decision, then I'm going to know for certain, I will have certainty and I will be okay. I will be doing what's right. And the thing is, you can do everything right and stuff still happens, because that's there's not one person going through life without something happening. I mean, that just is what it is. And I'm not saying like life is horrible, life is suffering, because I strongly disagree with that. But we're all having our lived human experience. So anyway, like once the bad thing shows up, it's like, oh, okay, the bad thing's here and I can deal with it. And all right, let's just like one foot in front of the other. But when I look back and realize like how much churning I was doing over stuff that didn't actually end up happening, how much negativity was happening in my brain over, I probably thought more about awful events happening than actually did occur. So I basically made myself experience more awful events than actually in reality happened to me. Like, just like, take me now. All because I was afraid of not knowing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to think my way through this. I'm going to manufacture something that isn't ultimately helpful. At least I haven't found it to be so. I think if you're in an active situation where things are actively happening, that maybe can be helpful. But at some point, we do just start to have to live in our lives without expecting the most random, horrible thing that could possibly happen. And I still do have those like intrusive thoughts, but I don't identify with them. I'm not like, oh, I'm this. I'm just like, oh, okay, there it is. If I'm walking and a car goes by at a really high rate of speed, I'm like, wow, that car could have totally ran right off the road right into me and killed me. Like, what? It's already gone. That car is down the road. Why brain? What are you doing? But so that's kind of like, I want to lead into the next thing I wanted to mention, which is when we're acclimated to looking for the negative, because we have anxiety and we're scared. And we want to be able to be prepared for something that's going to happen, because we don't know how to handle the anxiety of not knowing, not having low distress tolerance, and a lot of our distress is around, the maybes, the what ifs. So if you're talking from like an abuse dynamic background, there's this point at which you're like that kid in The Sixth Sense who's like, oh, I see dead people, only for victims of abuse and trauma. It's, oh my God, there's abusive people everywhere. You're like, what happened? How did I not see this? I personally think one of the reasons why we don't see it is because we do not talk to kids about power. We talk around the concept of power. So, we'll say things like, well, because I'm your mother, do it, or because I'll put you in a timeout, or my dad would say things like, if you keep crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about, like stuff like that, so people are exerting power over us, maybe not great ways, but like never saying, oh, by the way, there's this concept called power, and someone can power over you, and power in and of itself isn't good or bad. It's simply a tool. It depends on how that person uses it. Also, you have to consider whether that power over another person is reasonable. Is it reasonable for a parent to have power over a child? Yes. Is that power pretty complete and total? Yes. Can that power be misused? 100% absolutely. So there's like a lot of, aspects of power to consider, and we don't bring up kids. Well, I mean, I do with mine, but that's because I'm a weirdo, I guess. I don't know. It's fine. But so, we go through our childhoods and we're just like, oh, this is how things are. And then at some point kids don't even have a concept for child abuse for the most part. You might catch a scary PSA, but it doesn't really click that that's like your situation, because you love your parents. They're not actually a shadow menacing you, so so we finally get to the state where we're like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by, and we go, okay, how can I deal with this? I know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a shit ton of research. I'm gonna figure out the factors of abuse, what abusers look like, and that way I will never have to experience this shit again. And the thing is it doesn't work, because it's based off this operating paradigm of I have to know every single sign. I have to know every single thing in order to protect myself. And the thing is, that's not the case. And also, it's a problem in a different way. So the reason it's a problem in a different way is once we're there, then that's all we're looking for. It's again being stuck in a negative paradigm, but in a different way. So now it's okay, now I'm looking, at situations and things in my life. Not me, but us, people. Now we're looking, and then it's is everyone horrible, or is it just, am I just surrounded by horrible people? And you're looking for the perfect healthy people. Where are they? What do you guys look like? And when your perception paradigm is when your perception filter is looking for the abusive, toxic behaviors, that's what you're gonna be seeing in your life. So we gotta balance that shit out with looking for healthy connecting behaviors, and also recognizing we do not, this idea of okay, if I just get enough information and then I can make a determination and then I'll know for certain and I will have certainty and then I will be safe, because I can't handle not knowing. I can't handle being in a state of, not knowing this. We want to be able to make a determination. And then they go, okay, this person good or bad? This person safe or not? This person healthy or not? You know, and then be like, boop, boop, handled. I know forever how to deal with this person. And, you know, so, but the thing is, what ends up happening then is we're sitting there looking, you know, until they do something bad enough for us to be like, oh, okay, you're, you know, bad person. I don't want you in my life. Out. And the thing is, it's like, we don't, like, we're keeping people in our orbit accidentally because we're like, oh, I need to make a decision on whether or not they're a safe person, you know? But what ends up happening is we're keeping them around so we can make that decision. And so we're keeping people around and we don't need to keep around. Because we're like, oh, is that enough? You know, like, is that abusive? And, you know, we're very much in our heads. And the thing is, you know, making a determination on everybody in your life is such an exertion of mental power in your brain. It's just going and it's exhausting. Living like this is exhausting. And I say that as somebody who has lived this way. And I am telling you, it is exhausting. You know, like, oh, what a burden to carry. So anyway, when you start looking for, like, not just the concerning red flags, but when we start looking for those green flags, like, oh, positive, healthy behaviors, you know, we start looking for the good stuff, moments of connection, you know, and shining a light on the stuff we want more of in our life, you know. The law of attraction people are very much like, oh, I hate this so much. Because even the law of attraction phrase is wrong for what they're describing. What they're describing is you internally are on the level of the thing that you've been wanting. And then that thing comes, you know, that thing is now in your experience and you will have it in your life. And their mentality around, like, law of attraction is that you attract that thing to you, and that's wrong. Because, like, true law of attraction is you've already become the thing. And so that thing's already in your experience. And then, of course, you're going to have it in your outer experience because, you know, what is in your inner experience is reflected back to you, or it will be in your world. So, like, there's like that, you know, kind of metaphysical kind of aspect to it, if that's your speed. But if you're looking at it from a psychology paradigm perspective, you know, you have a perception filter, and then what you're looking for is what you're going to be seeing. So our perception filter affects where we put our focus and what information we take in. And then that is our paradigm, our way of thinking, our pattern of thinking, processes the information and comes to a conclusion, which generally speaking will reinforce itself. The conclusion we come to will reinforce the belief that we have that drives our paradigm, and will reinforce the perception filter that we have. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's, again, a tool. You know, once you recognize that's what's going on, you go, oh, okay, I can tweak this. So, you know, when we're over here and we're catastrophizing because we're like, okay, if I can just figure out every bad possible permutation of a thing that could happen and then prepare for it, then I'll be safe and I'll be okay, you know? And then finally we go, this doesn't work. Okay. You know, let me move forward into something, a different way of doing that, which is like, okay, let me analyze every single person who comes into my life and see, like, you know, what's the worst, you know, are there issues here? Are there red flags? Are they abusive? You know? And we're still, like, focused on all the negative, and we're worried and anxious, churning. But we get to this point where we can go, you know what? Where are things going well? That's good information to have. How are people showing up in our lives with green flags? That's good information to have. And the thing is, the beauty is that we do not have to be omniscient, all-knowing people who have that computer program going all the time. We're like 20 tabs deep on a fucking browser window, you know, or just this running these processes, sucking up resources. Where all we need to, literally, the answer is so simple. It's so simple, and I want to say we all resist it, but I don't know that that's categorically true, but from what I've seen, like, we all resist it. I don't know what it is, we don't want it to be the answer, but the answer is having good boundaries. I don't know why we all resist this, but it's the absolute truest thing. The unsafe people, the people that you want to be like, ooh, no, all they have to do is show you that they violate boundaries. They don't even have to be big ones. They can be small ones. There were plenty of early boundary violations in both of my relationships that ended up being abusive. And I didn't walk away because I didn't think it was a big deal. But they weren't respecting my boundaries, and I wasn't respecting my own boundaries. But when you get to a place of like, okay, I don't have to make a determination about everybody. I don't have to be guessing. I don't have to like look for, you know, boo, 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 all these red flags. Like, the thing to pay attention to is, are they violating any boundaries, and are you maintaining your own boundaries? It's literally that simple. It's dumb that it's that simple, but it is literally that simple. Anyway, I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you next time.